Hello and welcome to the latest Hall's Wine Guide. I'm here in our studios in Bristol and we have got a cracking live stream for you tonight, because tonight we are working with DBM Wines, a local wine company based in Clifton, which is the high bit near Clifton Suspension Bridge in Bristol. And it's a relatively new wine company, started in 2009, and it prides itself on a very personal service with its customers, and it has a very interesting selection of wines. So in tonight's live stream, and I hope you're joining now, as we start the tasting, we're going to work our way through 6 wines selected by DBM Wines, some of which I know and some of which I don't. And as we go through them, we're going to be building up to a 7th mystery wine at the end of our live stream. So that's what we're going to be up to this evening. Those of you who watched any other wine guides or listened to me talk about wine before will know that I'm an amateur. I'm not a professional wine taster and I don't work in the wine trade. So this is my views, my opinions shared with you. You can like them or disagree with them. So we're on these social media streams now. You can comment, you can like, you subscribe. Please do all of those things. We're going out now on DB Wines site. So if you're on their Facebook or Instagram, you could be watching us now. We're also out on the usual Hall's Wine Guide channels on Facebook, on YouTube and on Twitter or X. So you can use any of those platforms to comment or feedback. And of course, if you want to use hashtag Hall's Wine Guide or hashtag DBM Wines, we'll be keeping an eye on those. And just a bit of housekeeping to explain how we're running the stream this evening. I've got a lot of help around me. So I have Darren driving social media, and he's going to help me. So you'll see some magic arms coming in now to help me with all the wines. You're also going to see that we have the fantastic team of Chris and Jamie in the gallery helping to make sure that you get the quality live stream that we want to show you. So that's the team, and I may be talking to them as we work our way through the wines. But I know that what you really want me to do is to start talking about the wines. That's what I'm going to do. We're going to work our way through the 6 wines. I'll taste them here. We'll talk a little bit about the wines, maybe some general stuff about the grapes, the varieties, the wine producing areas. As we work our way through them, I'll also be directing you to DBM's website, where we have got set up for 48 hours a super discount on the wines that we'll be tasting this evening. So you can go to dbmwines.co.uk and you'll see that the wines that we have got to taste this evening will offer you some special discounts, and I'll talk those through. I should note, of course, that if you have any difficulties with any of those wines or any problems with the website, then all you need to do is to email, and you'll have all those details of who to call, what to do, and the wines on the screen around me as we work our way through the live streams. But as I'm sure you're waiting for me to start, let's start drinking some wine. And the first wine we have is this Picpoul de Pinet. Picpoul de Pinet. So this is a wine you may well have started tasting. It's a wine that we've got quite common now in the UK. It's become quite a popular wine. And one of the things I've learned is that for DB Wines, it is now, DBM Wines, it is now one of their most popular summer buys. And why is it a great summer wine? Well, because it's a lighter style of wine. It's often described as a perfect choice for summer. It's a lighter style of wine, and it's from the very south of France. This, in fact, vineyard in sight of the Mediterranean. And that's kind of intriguing, a little bit unusual if you're interested in wine, because generally once you get that far south, you tend to find that more of the wines are red and of the traditional red varieties. And we'll be tasting a couple of those a little later on in this stream. But we'll start with this one. Now, there's another theme that we'll get with these wines through this evening, and that's the organic and green credentials of a lot of these wines. So what's interesting about this is that the fermentation, which was very carefully temperature monitored and refrigerated, all the electricity that did that came from the solar power that this vineyard has. So the Ornaison Vigneron de Florensac wine, the Picpoul de Pinet here, was produced using solar power for its refrigeration, and the way in which they look after their vineyard is to use green techniques to manage pruning, and this is not a chemical-driven process. So that's going to be very interesting. Now I'm going to reach over now and pour myself a little bit of the wine. This one is a screw top, so I'll do this myself. I'm going to have to rely on the team to help me a bit during this when we go on to some of the corked bottles. And I mean that in the sense of having a cork, I hope, not that there's something wrong with them. So I'm going to pour myself a little tasting measure now of this wine. There we go. Let's have a little look at that. I think you can all see that wine. Here we go. Now I'm going to put this wine back here so that the camera one over on my left can show you the label when we cut to that, and then we can come back and you can have a look at me tasting the wine here. So we'll talk through the structure of tasting, and then we won't have to do it as we approach each wine. But the first thing we want to do with any of the wines that we taste is have a good look at them. You know, let's see what's in the glass. Let's have a look. Let's hold it against something white, ideally. If you're in a restaurant and you have a napkin, yeah, that would be great. Darren, could you grab me a piece of paper so I can show how I'd do this to look at it properly? So I'm looking here and I'm seeing I've got a light style of wine. And as we go through the different wines this evening, you'll see how looking at the intensity of the wine is quite important. And what are we trying to do? Why are we doing that? We're not just trying to be pretentious. What we're trying to do is learn as much of the... We're trying to learn as much about the wine as we can. There we go. I think you can see that there. Great. So what we're trying to do is learn as much about the wine as we can before we taste it. So we're starting here with a good look at the wine. You can see this is a very, very light colour. It's not got the deep golden qualities that you might expect in a rich Australian Chardonnay, for example. So I think I'm looking at a light style of wine. A slight greenish tinge to the gold. So if let me get you that. Is that there? I think I'm giving you a good opportunity to look at this Picpoul de Pinet here. So that's very nice. So I've got a great view of that now. I'm now going to pop my nose in the glass. I'm going to start finding out what more the wine has to tell us about itself. So here we go. Oh, I tell you, the fruit I'm immediately getting from this is grapefruit. There's a big squeeze of grapefruit juice in here. Fortunately, it's not real grapefruit, so if you're on statins, you can still drink this wine. But that's got a lovely, fresh, acidic, citrusy, maybe lime, lemon, grapefruit. It's certainly got an awful lot of that. If you have a look there, that should give you a good... Okay. And now we go for what the guys in the gallery call the money shot, which is me finally tasting the wine. So here we are. Yes, that's a delicious wine. The acid is really forward and fresh. It's a light summer wine with some summer seafood or a garden drinking wine. It's not a heavy, intense wine. It's not something that's going to become too strong to drink on its own. A glass of this sitting in the garden or with a light lunch or a light salad would be absolutely delicious. This is a very good wine. Now, the interesting thing about the grape is that it doesn't really do a lot all by itself. And so the winemakers here have very cleverly used a process called maceration to make this a better wine. So instead of simply crushing the grapes and then fermenting the juice to make the wine, they've also macerated the grapes. So they've allowed the grapes to spend a bit of time with the skin still on before they've crushed them, a number of hours. And that's imparted some more flavour and some more intensity to this wine. So you get a variety of styles of a Picpoul, But the ones that the newer makers, like the Vigneron de Florensac, are doing, that's a much more interesting approach, because they're spending time to think about how to impart more layers of flavour and intensity to the wines that they're making. So if you think that a Picpoul is a bit too light for your taste, you might find this a much more interesting drink. So I also happen to know that this normally retails for $14.95 a bottle. But if you are able to access the offers that we've got set up with DB Wines at dbwines.co.uk, you'll be able to buy it for the next 48 hours for just £12.50. Now, if you like Picpoul, or you've tried a Picpoul, or you have a story about Picpoul, please feel free to go into the comments on whichever platform you're watching our live stream and tell us all about them. So I wore a light summery jacket today, and I'm drinking a light summery wine. So I'm going to have another little taste here. So we'll see people do that when they're tasting wine. And it could, you're in danger of looking a bit pretentious. But of course, what I'm actually doing is allowing myself to taste more of the wine, because I'm oxygenating it, and I'm getting smaller particles of the wine to work their way around other parts of my mouth, and indeed probably into my nose, to help me taste the wine. Because just touching a liquid on the taste buds of your mouth only gives you a very limited ability to taste wine. It's getting those molecules elsewhere and around that enables you to taste all the other qualities in the wine, other than sort of sweet, salt, sour, bitter type taste. So you need to allow a bit of air in. You don't want to just suck the wine straight in and down. You'll get very, you won't understand all the magic of the flavours that those vignerons at the Florensac vineyard have spent their time trying to impart by the maceration and the careful temperature controlled fermentation. So I think that's a delicious wine, perfect for the summer. And on that note, I think I'm going to ask Darren to help me move on to the next wine, because if I leave this here, I don't think we're going to get through the next 5 wines. So that's great. Now, if you to take that away, we may come back to it later. So thank you for that. I've got another glass here, and you move that one, and let's pop this here so you guys can get a good look at this. Now, this is very interesting. We've got lots of interesting stuff to say. Have I got that label in the right? Is that a bit better? There we go. Let's get that so everyone gets a good view of the wine. So, what do we have here? We have a 2021 Savallo, which is from southern Spain. This is from Andalusia. Now, from Andalusia, you expect to get some big wines, because the south of Spain has an enormous amount of sunshine and very hot summers. And what do sunshine and hot summers do to grapes? It gives them higher levels of sugar, makes them riper. It gives them thicker skins, which is why you think of Southern Europe as giving you bigger, riper wines. But what's quite interesting here with this is that this grape is the Palomino Fina. It's the Palomino grape. This is a grape whose name you may recognize if you've been looking at bottles of sherry. So what we have here is really intriguing and quite unusual, which is a dry white wine made from the same grapes that people use to make sherry. Now, of course, sherry is a fortified wine. It's a wine that's made from grapes and then aged to give you all of those intense sherry flavors. What's very interesting here is that we've got a dry white wine made from the same grapes. So that makes this quite unusual. And being unusual and being well made, it also won Jancis Robinson's Wine of the Week last year. So this is a wine that's already caught people's attention. And I'm looking forward to having 100% unoaked Palomino. So I'm not quite sure what I'm going to expect here. But again, and this is going to be a theme through quite a lot of the wines this evening, this has been produced organically. Now, the other thing that's very interesting I've read about this, and I'm yet to taste it, so we're going to taste this together for the first time, is that they have used native yeasts, wild yeasts, to make it. Now, that's very interesting. So yeasts are something that is, they're in the air all around us. We're all covered in yeasts. But the grapes are covered in yeasts. Now, what traditional mass market wine production does is use methods to kill those yeasts and then introduce a very particular yeast that they wish to use because they know it's going to impart the qualities they want to the wine. But what we have here is one that is using the native yeasts from the vineyard to create the wine. And that's quite exciting, and also, you know, arguably a risky process, because you can get yeasts in there that are not good wine yeasts and that can give you quite a sour or unpleasant or foul smelling wine at the end of the process. So these organic makers who are doing interesting things and using wild yeast, they're experimenting with ways of getting native flavors and natural flavors into their winemaking. So that's very interesting. But the other thing they've done is a cool fermentation. We talked about fermentation a bit actually on this and on previous methods, but one of the previous shows. But one of the things I find fascinating about the temperature of fermentation is that it has such a big impact in wine, that it also has such a big impact in the history of wine making. So a lot of these southern vineyards traditionally made wines of very variable quality, because of course they couldn't control the temperature at which they were fermenting the wine in these big stone or concrete or even plastic vats. But in the 1970s, people started creating stainless steel vats. And if you look at the big stainless steel tanks, you think you're just looking at a single tank. But actually what you're looking at is a double jacket around the outside. And so the winemakers are able to put water around that jacket, around the huge cylinders that you see, and they use that to control very exactly the temperature that they want the wine to ferment at. And that gives them a huge amount of control. It also means that wines made in places like Andalusia are able to have a cool fermentation wine, as opposed to one that might start to race out of control because it's too warm. And that's been probably the biggest impact on New World wines. That's why wines from Australia and California and other hot countries started being of much higher quality. But it's also why the southern areas of Europe have started making much better wines as well. And we've got a few of those in this evening's tasting. But that's enough talking about fermentation and winemaking. Now let's try some of this wine. So I'm going to pick this up. Thank you, Darren, for using the corkscrew for me. That's great. There we are. And I have here, let's have get my wrist there. Here we go. So let me pour a little of this. There we go. And we pop this wine back here so that you can still see the wine. There we go. And we're going to do the same thing that we did with the last wine all over again. I'm going to pick up my sheet of white paper and I'm going to start looking at the colour. There we go. Now, I'll tell you, I can immediately see that I'm looking at a richer style of wine than the Picpoul. I've got, here we go, have a little look at that. There we go. I don't know if you can see, you can always scroll back on the stream and have a look, but I can distinctly see that this is a much more golden colour. The lighter strawy green colour's gone. This is a much more golden style of wine. And now I'm really interested to get my nose into this to find whether or not I'm going to get sherry smells, because this is a Palomino. So is this, oh, that is interesting, isn't it? Ooh. Yeah, I'm getting very distinct layers of apple, very ripe apples from that, like red, juicy red, sweet apples. Maybe some peach. There's some citrus in there, but it's not the dominant note in this. This feels like a richer, more rounded wine. Maybe herbs. Maybe I'm dreaming because of where it is that I'm smelling Mediterranean herbs, but it's certainly giving me a different palate to the lighter style of wine that we had a few moments ago. So we've had a look at that. I tell you though, I'm really not getting sherry. You know, so it's the sherry grape, but I'm getting a much more lively, acidic wine and very distinct apple and peach flavours. That's not what I'm expecting from a sherry. So now let's have a little taste. Oh my goodness. So Jose Carlos and Sandra Suarez, who make this wine, in their steel temperature-controlled fermentation, have done an amazing job. That's 100% Palomino. It's from Andalusia. It's a remarkable wine, and we have a deal with DBM Wines. So this bottle normally retails at £15.95, but if you go online to dbmwines.co.uk, you'll find that you can pick this wine up now for £13.95. Now, later on in this evening's stream, I'll give you an offer for if you want to buy all of the wines in this evening's tasting. We'll have a mixed case offer, but at the moment, wine by wine, this is a nice discount. It's a discount from £15.95 to £13.95. And this is not sherry. This is a very sophisticated dry white wine. It's got a lovely round palate, nice rich. Oh, I'm enjoying this one enormously, which probably means it's time that I say to Darren that we ought to move on to the next wine, because yeah, and you keep that one aside. We're gonna have some more of that after the stream has finished. So thank you for watching. We're going to work our way on to the next wine. Please, if you are on a social media platform, could you please like and subscribe? It will help boost our streams, and it will help DB Wines and help other wine companies. And if you're from a wine company and you have some wines you'd like us to taste and promote, you just need to drop us a line. Also, if you have any comments on the live stream today, anything that we're saying, then you should ask away. And I've already got a question here, which is interesting. I'm not sure I should answer the question. Louise in Portishead is asking, is Darren tasting too? And at the moment, I can see Darren is being extremely sensible and putting the wines away in the side of the office over there. But I'll keep an eye on him, and if that changes, you'll be the first to know. Right, so here we are. We're on to the Suito Encruzado Estate White. Now, this is interesting. This is a Portuguese wine. And this is the first Portuguese Encruzado that I have tasted. And I'm quite excited about it because it's an unusual grape and it's unique to this area of Portugal. So if you look at Portugal, you've got Lisbon on the left there on the coast. You have Porto further up. This area, the Dow area of winemaking, is northeast of Lisbon and southeast of Porto. And it's quite high. It's a mountainous area. So although we are quite south and we're going to be expecting quite a rich sun-affected wine, one with colour and strong sugars and therefore higher levels of alcohol, that's been tempered by the fact that this wine has been produced a little way up a hillside. So it's a cooler area in which it's been produced. This is a Portuguese white. It's an unusual variety. But one thing that DBM Wines said to me in their notes for the tasting was that they think that this wine would appeal to somebody who is keen on New World Chardonnays or traditional white Burgundies. Now that's very interesting because that is talking straight to my heart. I was in Burgundy only a couple of weeks ago in the beautiful village of Pouilly-de-Montrachet tasting some outstanding wines. So that's quite a bold statement I've had from the team at DBM Wines, and I'm really looking forward to tasting it. I see that Karen, who's watching on Facebook, is asking, what's my favourite of the whites so far? So I'm going to say we've still got one to go. That the second wine was my favourite, but I think towards the end I will run through and give you an overall view of where we're at. But that's only two down. So let's move on. So the Palomino was a surprise to me. You know, that wasn't what I was expecting. I thought that was an outstanding wine, and I can see why Jancis Robinson made it her wine of the week. But I'm going to try now this exciting Encruzado from Dow in Portugal. Let's have a look and see whether a true lover of white Burgundy. There we go. It's a nice little taste of that. Now, just give me a moment there. I'm just going to put the wine back there. And now I'm going to give you a chance to have a look at this. Oh, there's a bit of life in this wine. I've got a few little bubbles there. It's a paler wine that I was thinking, which suggests that the hillside has had an impact. So it looks like a cooler style of wine. It doesn't look like a huge, great, rich, sun-drenched wine. That's interesting. I'm going to have a look at it against the white and share that with you. Let me try using my hands the other way around, see if that makes it easier for you to have a look. There we go. How's that? Yeah. There we go. Just, is that looking good? So you can see, of the three wines we've had, the palest by far was the Picpoul. The second wine, the Palomino, was the more golden, the wine from Andalusia. And now we've hopped over the border to Portugal, and we are drinking, or about to drink, an Encruzado, an unusual grape variety from Portugal. And I'm looking forward to this. So I think I'm going to take the opportunity now to have a little taste. Oh, okay. That's interesting. I'm getting lemon balm, white fruits, white peaches perhaps. There is some citrus there, but it's a very sharp citrus. So what would be fascinating if you were to get the mixed case would be to have the three wines with some friends, not all by yourself, but to have the three wines all together and to see how different they all are. Because it is magical how such a similar process of taking white grapes and making a wine from them produces such incredibly different wines. And if you put the three side by side, have a few friends around and smell and taste them together, you'd get an example of precisely that with these three wines. You couldn't mistake any of the three for one of the other wines. So now I'm going to taste this. Okay, that is incredibly fresh, fruity, acidic. I'm getting a much fresher style of wine than I was expecting with the Chardonnay pitch that I got. But I'm liking this. I'm getting hints of gooseberry, much greener fruits from this. I'm getting perhaps a hint of pear. I'm certainly getting some crabapple, perhaps. This is a much more fruity style of wine than I was expecting. Absolutely delicious wine. But yeah, if you were looking from my earlier description for a rounded, buttery, rich Burgundy style of wine, then I think this isn't that. If you're looking for something that would take you beyond a crisp Sauvignon and into something that's got those qualities but also a bit more weight, that would stand up to some food, stand up to a big seafood dish with garlic, this would be fantastic. This would even stand up, I think, to an Indian or a Chinese meal. It's got a lot to say for itself. Problem with some of the lighter styles of whites, if you eat them with those strongly flavoured foods, is you end up thinking you're drinking water. You might as well just drink a vodka and soda, because you lose all the flavours. So you need to find a white wine that's got something to say for itself. And this really fresh fruit acid is a really good example of that. So I think this is a quite delicious wine. Do I prefer it to the Palomino? Maybe we'll do a quick whiz through them at the end of the live stream and see. But I'm really impressed with the three whites I've had here so far. There's nothing that I wouldn't want to drink again. Oh, that's absolutely delicious. Darren, please feel free to have a taste.
I will do.
As we swap out and we move on. So before we move on, we've had our three whites. We're going to move on to some reds now. I'd just like to remind you that we are live streaming. So you're not watching a pre-recorded video. I'm live in the studio here in Bristol. And we are talking about the wines that we've been supplied by DBM Wines. DBM Wines is a traditional wine merchant based in Clifton. That's the nice hilly bit by the Clifton Suspension Bridge. I went up there earlier today to pick up these wines, and it's a beautiful shop, and it's right in the heart of Old Clifton. It's absolutely beautiful up there. Not an area I know well, but I think I was sort of looking around thinking there must be a really cracking Airbnb here somewhere so I could explore. Absolutely beautiful. The wine merchant's been there since 2009, and you could tell the moment you walk in that this is a friendly, small business that is passionate about its wines, and I'm sure if you went in, they'd talk you through and show you all sorts of interesting wines, because like lots of small personal wine merchants, they're really interested in how they can find a wine that you really like. So if you go in and start talking about wines you've tried, they will find something for you to try that might take you further on your wine journey. So here we are. We're now going to move on to the first of our red wines. Now, we're starting with a lighter style of red wine. This is a Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir is the traditional red grape of Burgundy. So Burgundy is the northern part of winemaking in France. So if you look at France, we're sort of middle top right, and it's a very large wine producing area. So it starts quite high with Chablis and some northern white wines. And as you work your way down through towards Beaujolais, you get more sun, more heat, and richer wines as well. Now, the two predominant grapes that people drink from Burgundy are Chardonnay for the whites and Pinot Noir for the red. We'll do another show at some point where we'll look at some of the quirky other grapes and styles that are around, but those are the two key grapes that we'll be looking at. Here we've got Pinot Noir, so the traditional Burgundy red grape. It produces beautiful, lighter, perfume-style reds. Pinot Noir is the perfect red grape to start trying if you think that you don't like reds. So it's a much lighter style of red, and if you've been hit with a massive red and thought, oh my God, I'll stick to whites, then a Pinot Noir like this would be a really good place to start. Lots of people feel that way. Lots of people say that to me, and I know it's because they've had a bad or a very big red to start with, and there are some much lighter styles, and Burgundy is a great place to look for them. This is that grape, but it's not from Burgundy. So this grape is from California, or was grown in California, and the wine was made there. And it was made by John Kautz, who is one of the biggest winemakers in California, and has one of the most interesting vineyards. So the Ironstone Vineyard and Winery is a huge undertaking. And it also has, can you believe it, a huge arena like the Hollywood Bowl. So you can go and watch huge live concerts there. And Robert Plant is even playing there. So we're talking about a vineyard that is more than just somewhere that makes wine. This has become an institution in California. And he works to produce really interesting, high quality wines, but on a large scale. So they're available for everyone to drink. This is a 2018 Pinot Noir, so it's had a few years in the bottle. It's got a little bit of age, and I've not drunk this wine before, so I'm quite interested to see how it goes. So we'll work our way through our usual process. We'll start here with, we'll have a little look at the label, which you know I like to do. I can see here that it's actually the 2019 that we have here. That's very good. That's why you should look at the bottle. So when you go to restaurants, you look at wine lists, you'll check out the bottles, and you'll find out that you may or may not have exactly the same wine. It's very good to keep an eye and spot that. So just for the notes, the wine that that we're tasting and that they'll be selling will be the 2019 Ironstone Pinot Noir. We can test the tech guys now, see if we can change that on screen while I'm talking. So good luck on that while I pour that. Okay. That's great to see. So I was in Burgundy only a couple of weeks ago. I think I've got that pointing right at the camera there. Only a couple of weeks ago, and tasting some outstanding Burgundies. And there is a colour that you look for in an older Pinot Noir, an older Burgundy. And it is a lack of intensity at the centre, because it is a lighter wine and a lighter style of wine. But there's a slight brownish, saddle brown note to the red. It isn't a vibrant red. As it ages, you get a much more subtle, leathery quality to the red. And I've got exactly that here. So if I was looking at this, I would have thought that I was looking at an older red Burgundy, which bodes well, I think, for the tasting. Now, let me get my white sheet up so you guys can have a look as well. So here we go. Yeah, here we go. That's the There we go. I don't know how well lit you've got that. Whether you can see that's lighter in style. It's quite difficult, I think, to pick out on TV. So you're just going to have to rely on rely on me. But I can tell you that as I look through the wine to the white, I'm not seeing a huge concentrated centre of red as I'm going to expect I'll see in some of the wines that we have to follow. So I'm looking at that. I've seen that. I'm now going to get my nose in there and see if I'm going to get cherries and plum, maybe a touch of vanilla, the classic keys that I'd be looking for in a red Burgundy. Oh, I tell you what's very interesting there. I've definitely got the cherries. I've got some spice. I've got plum. I'm getting more red soft berries as well. I'm definitely getting strawberry here. So I'm not getting the darker sort of black cherry notes. I'm getting a much softer red fruit, red currant strawberry sort of nose, which I wasn't expecting. That's very intense and fruity. I've got a sense of quite a powerful alcohol on here. I'm just going to have a little look at the label and see. It's 14.5%. So yeah, it is a stronger wine. Not all the red Burgundies would have that level of alcohol. So this is a stronger wine, which we would expect because it's been grown in California with more sun hours and more ripeness. Although I have to say with the weather in Europe, that's varying madly from year to year now anyway. So traditional ideas about styles of wine are changing year on year. When people are getting 40-degree heat, you know, in the southern end of Burgundy, then calling it, describing it as a cooler wine-producing area is a bit bonkers. But I'm now going to taste this Pinot Noir. The cherry flavours are there on the palate, the ones I wasn't picking up on the nose. That is an absolutely classic quality Pinot Noir. This is a delicious wine. It will probably stand up to some stronger food than you might think. I can see this with some more gamey flavours working quite well. You know, if you're, anything that you're grilling, barbecuing. Ooh, wow. That's great. That is a stronger American-style Pinot Noir. It's absolutely classic. It's got a bit of age to it. I can tell you that it's normally £17.95 a bottle, but if you go onto the DBM's website now, you'll be able to pick this up for, just checking my notes, £15.95. So a good discount there. And as I said, if you stick with the stream, we'll have a deal at the end for a mixed case of all the wines that we're tasting this evening. So this is a Californian Pinot Noir. It is 2019 wine. It's got a bit of age on it. You can see that, you can smell it, and it has nice forward fruity flavours. This would be a good wine for someone who's just starting to edge into drinking reds from whites. So moving on then, I'm going to pass that on. And Darren, you're going to have a taste, I think?
We'll just save some for the end, at the end actually.
Now this is interesting. The next wine that we have. So we are going to taste a Carignan. Now, if you know Carignan, you'll be expecting me now to say that this wine is from the south of France, because the south of France is the traditional home. Although, historically, the grape probably came from Spain, and may even be as old as the Phoenicians coming into Europe. It could be a very, very old grape variety. Let's have a little look at the bottle and discover, oh my lord, this wine is not from the south of France, where you'd expect a Carignan to come from. It is, in fact, it's from Chile. This is a Chilean Carignan. So let me pop it back there while we talk about that a bit. So Carignan was a is a mass production grape, was a hugely produced grape. And if you started drinking red wine in the 1980s and bought cheap bottles of French red wine and thought they didn't taste great, the chances are you were probably drinking Carignan. It was the mass production grape. It covered huge areas until the mid to late 80s, when the techniques of winemaking that we talked about a little earlier on, the cool temperature fermentation, managing winemaking in a New World style, when those techniques started coming back to France, they realized that these southern areas of very ripe grapes and of intense temperatures could actually produce a much more sophisticated wine. And so they started tearing out the Carignan and replacing it with the varieties that we're used to drinking today. But interestingly, at the same time, in some places like Chile, those grapes were also being grown, generally being used as grapes to support in a blend other varieties, possibly sometimes also for fortified wine. But as the winemaking technology itself has got much more sophisticated, and this has all happened in my lifetime, this isn't ancient, those techniques have enabled some of these ancient varieties to create wines of a much more sophisticated quality than we would ever have expected in the 1980s. So this is really interesting. So we have a Carignan here from Chile. It's called No es Pituco. Let me read that carefully and get that right. No es Pituco. And my Spanish-speaking friends will know that that means, I think, nothing fancy or something of that sort. And that's because this wine has been produced in a very simple way. So this wine has not been filtered. This wine is going to be a little bit cloudy. It's been produced completely naturally. And so I'm quite intrigued. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to give it a taste now. Let me pour some here. Oh, look at that colour. Yes. So I'm going to put the wine back there so that you can have a look. Keep an eye on it for me. And I'm going to have a look here at the wine. Now, here I have, this is purple. Let's have this, have a look at that. This wine is so purple, it's incredible. It's a completely different colour from that pale leathery brown that we had with the Pinot Noir. I'm now looking at a sumptuous, I mean, you could make royal cloaks out of this. It's that intense a red. The Emperor of Rome could have worn clothes this colour. It's an incredible rich purple. So let me now everybody has their own keys, their own little things that help them remember grapes when they smell them or taste them. And the old Carignan for me, and I can smell cheese in it, a kind of blue cheese. There's that note, and I always know I've got Carignan in the glass in some of those southern French wines when I smell that. Other people can't always smell the same thing. It probably, smell means something different, that chemical, to other palates. So to me, that's very distinctive, and I know it's Carignan when I can smell that. What's very interesting here is that I can't smell it at all. This smells like a completely different grape. And the clarity of the wine is perfect. Can you see that? Let me hold that. Let me see where you get a view of that. It's a beautiful, vibrant colour. I've got narrower red fruits on the nose, maybe less ripe plums, maybe blackberries. It's not an indulgent, rich pile of red fruits like the last wine. Let me give it a little agitation to see if it has anything more to say for itself. Yeah, I'm maybe picking up some spices there. Black pepper, cinnamon perhaps. So it's got quite a sophisticated nose for a grape that a lot of people will instinctively, particularly older people, my generation or older, will instinctively think is rather a kind of basic grape. So getting a wine that's got that kind of sophisticated nose is probably more than most people will expect. So here we go. Oh, I've just seen messages there from Kate and Fergus. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure you take the opportunity to like and subscribe, and please share. And this is a wine. This is a wine that I think could benefit from a little more air. It would open and stand up to being decanted, perhaps. It's got a firm body to it, don't we all? So I think what we've got here is a very interesting wine. I wouldn't have expected this from Chile. I wouldn't have expected this from Carignan. This is a smooth, indulgent wine with a lot of interesting and complex berry notes to it. The tannins are not pronounced. They're very mellow. So this isn't a sharp, bitter, heavy red. This is a very it's a lighter drinking style than I would have expected from the grape, which may explain the name. No es pituco. It's nothing fancy. So. Oh, lovely. So I'm going to now ask Darren to come in and swap us over, pop us on to the next wine. Meanwhile, I'm just going to remind you, particularly if you've just joined the stream, I can see some people have just been joining us, that if you go to dbmwines.co.uk, you'll be able to buy these wines. They're available with some discounts. Those discounts last for the next 48 hours. So if you want the wines, you need to get on the site today, tomorrow, and order those wines. We will have a mixed case offer at the end of the live stream, which means you can buy a bottle of all of the wines that we've been tasting this evening for a great price. And if you have any issues with the website, if you check out the details on the screen here, you can email and get any help that you need. Remember at dbmwines.co.uk, or for any queries, info@dbmwines.co.uk, and they'll sort you out. Remember, this is a small wine merchant which prides itself on a very personal relationship with all of its customers. So you'll be able to get in touch and they will help you and sort you out. So also, please like and subscribe. We want to boost the live stream. So let's move on to our last red wine. So here we go. Let's have a little look at this. So we are now jumping around to a grape that I find really interesting and I like very much. But there's still an interesting story about this. So Primitivo is a grape that you may well associate with Sicily. It's a very common grape in Sicily. It's a big red grape in Sicily. This wine is not from Sicily. But funnily enough, we also earlier, if you think about it, had a Pinot Noir that was from California, if you can remember that far back. California produces a lot of the same wine, although they call the grape Zinfandel. So we're now expecting, if you've ever drunk a Primitivo from Sicily or a Zinfandel from California, a bigger, heavier style of wine. We might be looking for some of those peppery styles, some of those wines that have got enough to stand up against some char grilling. You know, if you're planning some barbecues the next couple of months, if the sun ever comes out, then this would be a great wine to have to stand alongside anything you can grill. Even if you're, like me, keep burning stuff on the grill, doesn't matter. This wine has got the strength to stand up against it. So let's have a look and see if we can learn and get the keys from looking at the wine before we taste the wine and see if that supports the theory that I've just put forward, which is that this is going to be a bigger, heavier, richer wine based on what we know about it. So let's have a little look now. I'm going to pour some of the wine. Here we go. There we go. Oh, now let me pop that back down so that you can continue to see the bottle. I might look at that myself in a moment. And now let's have a good look. There you go. Everybody gets a chance to have a look at that wine. There we go. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to look at the wine. So let's get my white piece of paper up. I thoroughly recommend that if you're doing any tastings at home that you get yourself a white piece of paper as well. In a restaurant, it's brilliant. You just pick up a napkin and do that. And I can tell you that if you do that, then you'll find that the sommelier will take you much more seriously. May even bring you a glass of something he's trying if he thinks you're interested in wine to get your opinion. So now we just decide where we're going to go. Let's do this on, okay, which way? We're going to do this over here. There we go. let me get you that. There we go. I think you've got the view now of that wine. So we had a lighter red-brown style in our first wine, the Pinot Noir. We had a vibrant purple, like a indulgent Roman emperor's coat in the second wine, in the Carignan. This is straight down the middle of the road, the choice between those two wines. So here I've got a red wine which, without sounding daft, is red wine coloured, whereas the other two were at the extremes of the palette of red wine colour. So this is a beautiful cherry red, Morello cherry red colour. Looks very good. I'm just going to have a look at the bottle. I can see that this is a 2022 wine. So again, we'll make sure that we change that. It's a 2022 wine. Make sure that you get that when you order it. That's the one that we're tasting. Let me put that down. Good. Let's see if they can magic that different on your live stream. And I'm now going to smell the wine. Now, I have to say I'm biased. I love Primitivo, and that's because I've spent quite a lot of time in Sicily. This is from the mainland of Italy, so this is the other side of the Straits of Messina. This wine is the same grape, it's the Primitivo, but this wine has been grown as a mainland Italian wine. And as Sicily's grapes have got more exciting and the quality of the winemaking has improved, not least, of course, as we talked about, because of the temperature-controlled fermentation. As that's got better, we've now seen that improvement in winemaking spreading across the whole of southern Italy. So there are all sorts of interesting wine production areas, DOC areas, that don't have historic high-quality wine credentials, but are now producing fabulous wine. And I have to say, looking at this and my nose in it, I'm beginning to think this might be one of those. So let's have a little look. Oh, wow. Okay. So it's a strong wine. It's an alcoholic wine. It's one that's giving me really rich plum flavors. There are some lighter, maybe raspberry-ish notes in the background, but this is giving me a kind of wood, tobacco, dark fruits, dark cherry, Morello cherry, perhaps. This is an intense red wine. It's lighter to look at than I would have expected from the variety. I've seen much darker versions of this, but this tends perhaps more to the style of a Californian Zinfandel than a Sicilian Primitivo in the way it's been produced. It's got a nice supple quality to it. This wine, I think we decided, is 2022, still very young. I think if you buy some of this, you'll find that it'll stand you a good few years as long as you keep it lying on its side and in a reasonably cool, dark place. If you leave it standing upright in the sun, then it's not going to last very long. So let's... I'm going to have another little taste of this. Now, if you're enjoying what you're seeing on the live stream, please like and subscribe, and please make sure that you follow us so that you don't miss our next live streams. And if you have any comments about what you're seeing, please add them in whichever social media platform you're watching the live stream today. It helps us see that you're watching, it helps us learn, and obviously if you've got any questions, just come straight back and ask the questions, and the team will pass them straight on to me and we'll come back with the answers. So, yeah, this is the last of our red wines. I'm going to have that extra taste. That's delicious. Darren, we're taking this one back. You know, this is a great wine. I recommend that. Now, remember, if you think you might enjoy any of these wines or all of these wines, as much as we are, then, or I am, then please, you can get them at discounts for the next 48 hours. And to do that, you need to go to dbmwines.co.uk. That's the local Clifton, Bristol-based wine merchant with the personal service, and they will sort you out. You can buy these by the bottle, by the bottles, or shortly after our next surprise wine, we will be, you'll be able to order a mixed case. So you'll be able to buy one of each of the wines, and then you could always watch the live stream back, taste the wines yourself, see whether you agree or disagree with my tastings, and add some notes. You could tell me I was right, you could tell me I was wrong, and then you can join us on the next Hall's Wine Guide. So I'm going to pop this one away now, and we are going to move on to our final wine, which is a quirky and interesting surprise visitor. So let me, there we go, put my glass here. So this is an orange wine. Now that's intriguing, isn't it? Because does that mean it's made of oranges? Is it the colour? What's interesting about this is it is a quirky and unusual way of making wine. And that's something that we're seeing more and more of. I was in a restaurant in Brussels a couple of weeks ago, called La Longue Vie, beautiful restaurant in Ixelles in the centre of Brussels. And the sommelier there was very keen on sharing lots of new style wines. And a lot of these new style wines are very back to basics in their production methods. They're rediscovering using the wild yeast that we talk about, using, in some cases, not temperature controlled fermentation, trying to experiment with styles of wine from the past. They're also trying to use intriguing grape varieties for things that they weren't traditionally used for, or things that they haven't been used for recently. And they're trying to experiment with not filtering the wine, with not fining the wine, it's called, without taking out all of the particles from the wine. So you're allowing the wine to have a much more, take you back to the styles of winemaking that, you know, our ancestors 100, 200, 300 years ago would have tried. And that's quite intriguing. There are lots of very creative winemakers who are trying to experiment with doing that. Now, this wine from Sicily is a DBM flavour of the month, and that's why they've asked us to have a taste of it. It's been popular for a year. It's made organically, as a lot of the wines we've had this evening have been. But it's made here, let's have a little look, from, here we go, this wine is made with Catarato. Where we go into, here we are, that's going to give it the best for you. There we go. There, yeah, there we go. Okay, there we go. We got it there. Lovely. So that's there we go. I think you've got to see. I'll put it back there. It's easier for you to look at it when it's over here. So there we go. Here's now. So this is the grape that was traditionally dominant in Marsala wine, a fortified wine, a competitor to sherry. It's a wine that Sicily was famous for way back, even into the not quite the mists of time, but certainly as far as Nelson. So Nelson famously ordered 500 pipes of Marsala wine, and this grape would have been used to make that wine. Now, what these winemakers have started doing is using it to make a modern style of wine, but they've taken a grape which historically isn't thought to have a lot to say for itself, which is why it's used to become a more intense and fortified wine. But what they've done is go through the process of maceration. So once they've picked the grapes, they're going to leave them and allow them to start squashing themselves, perhaps even fermenting a little bit themselves, before they then crush them. So that maceration process has allowed, rather like our pick pool earlier, has allowed a grape that you didn't expect to be loaded with flavour to get a little bit more. So these winemakers have been very creative in what they've done. They've experimented with a grape variety that you don't expect, and we have a non-filtered wine from a grape we don't expect to have a dry white wine from. So I'm looking forward now to this, as I have done for all the wines. So let's come on that. Here we go. Oh, now you can see why this has been described as an orange wine. Let me put this down here. So, and you can see there is a little bit cloudy. That's not a crystal clear wine. Look at that. So I'm looking at that. I'm enjoying the colour. I can see that it's a little cloudy quality. I was talking about that Belgian restaurant. All of the wines, or most of the wines that he served, and we had a different wine with each course, was an unfiltered wine made in this style. So we've got quite a lot of interesting, quirky wines appearing, and DBM Wines are obviously the cutting edge of finding them because they've got this as a flavour of the month. So this excellent little local wine shop in Clifton, which is not far from where I'm talking to you now. It's the Hill in Bristol next to the suspension bridge. They are the place that have found this wine, have shipped it, and can ship it, of course, to you. And if you go to dbmwines.co.uk, you'll find this wine not at its usual price of £15.95, but at the special DBM Wines Hall's Wine Guide discount price of £13.95. So now I'm going to, okay, that's giving me grapefruit. There's some round lychee quality to that. I'm not sure what to expect. This is very interesting. Oh, certainly grapefruit, but there's a round, mellow, supple quality to that as well. It's a nice bit of acid just to support it. Definitely green apples in the finish there. It is an unusual wine. It's delicious. It would stand up to some interesting food. Certainly, the Pickpool was the lightest of the whites that we've had. We've worked our way through two others, and this, of course, is also a white wine, albeit it's called an orange wine. And this would work fantastically. It's got enough richness here. There's a little more residual sugar in this than the others. This would stand up even to perhaps a pudding, I think. It's got a very rich, rounded flavour. It's a lovely ripe wine. There's a little honey note on it. I'm picking up a honey note now in the finish. Wow. Well, that was absolutely delicious. That was our surprise wine. That's the orange wine. It's the Rallo Vicoletto orange wine from Sicily. It's a DBM flavour of the month, and you could drink this anytime, actually, but particularly, I think, with some interesting food, could even stand being used to go alongside a pudding if you don't like the super sweet pudding wines. Grapefruit, apple, herbs, nice fresh acidity, lovely round quality. And again, it's an organic wine that's been made with no filtration, no chemicals. This is a very natural, old style wine. So that concludes our active tasting. So we've worked our way through 6 wines and a special wine. As you know, this live stream was brought to you with the assistance of the team at DBM Wines in Clifton in Bristol. Of course, they ship all over the country, but they're a small and specialist wine merchant. And what does it specialise in? It specialises in building a personal relationship with the people that buy wines from it. If you're in the area and you're near us here, then you can always visit the shop. It's at 7 Princess Victoria Street in Clifton. It's open normal shop opening times. So if you've liked any of these wines and you want to go and talk about them some more, you can pop into the shop. But if you want to get these special prices for the next 48 hours, then you need to go to the website. That's dbmwines.co.uk and look up the wines that we've covered in this show, and you will find that you can get them at a discount. Any problems with that, either give them a shout or email them at info@dbmwines.co.uk, and they will help you with more information, or if you want to try and negotiate yourself an even bigger discount. So That's there. Now, what I promised you throughout this stream was that there would be a mixed case offer. And this is the moment when I can reveal the mixed case offer. So all of those wines that I've tasted and shared with you this evening, if you were to buy them individually at their recommended price, it would be £119.82. So that's £119.82. But if you buy the mixed case and you take all of them, the team at DBM Wines have promised for the next 48 hours that they will make them available to you. They will sell them to you for just £99. So even with our discount pricing, even with the deals that we've offered, if you buy them all, you can walk home with an incredible deal of discount on discount. We're piling them up for you here. dbmwines.co.uk. Drop them a line. Look for the mixed case offer. You'll see that on the site. And again, any problems here, or you can email the team at DBM Wines at info@dbmwines.co.uk. So that brings us to the end of this evening's tasting. I hope you've enjoyed the wines that we've tasted. I certainly have. I'm going to do a bit of a tasting now so that Darren and Jamie, Joe and Chris, who have been working like crazy people behind the scenes to make sure that we put all this together for you, are going to make sure that they get to taste the wines now as we bring the show to a close. So thank you very much. Please take the chance. Please like, please subscribe, and please comment on the live stream. And I hope that you will join us before long when we do the next Hall's Wine Guide. Thank you very much. Have a lovely evening.